Since being founded in 1909, 114 years ago, Bugatti have made some of the most amazing cars in the world and some of the most expensive. From some of their older classics to some of their newer vehicles, and influencers who own them alike.
I like the colour. You like the colour?
They are famous over the world for everyone, from rich people to even your average younger person. They are great cars, but there's one car that has always not had much of a standout and maybe might be the OG of the 90s. To understand the importance of this car, I want to go back to 1909 when the brand was created. Back in 1909, Ettore Bugatti was a German and then French manufacturer of high-performance automobiles and created cars similar to this. They were a lot of older vehicles, and this is kind of what Bugatti was known for. And some of the vehicles were really special. They were used in racing and Le Mans, such as the Type 41 and Type 57. And a lot of Grand Prix races really began because of Bugatti here. This thing started to change, and then in 1950s, the last Bugatti of its kind was created. This, of course, at the time being known as the Type 101. So what is the unsung hero in question, you may ask? Well, it's the Bugatti EB110, a mid-engine sports performance car, which was finally a car released after almost 35 years, from 1901 to 2002. And the EB110 is more of the OG sort of start of Bugatti's reign of amazingly expensive and most powerful cars in the world. Bugatti made this car on a limited production run and was made by Romano Artiglio, Italian's incarnation of Bugatti, and he only made the one car or was involved in the production. What makes the Bugatti EB110 a particularly interesting car is that it had an unveiling and company financial difficulties at the time when it was released, and it was released 110 years after Bugatti's death at the time of its founder. What's amazing about this car is that it's just very different and almost set the scene for what we have now, of course being the Chiron and other great cars that they've been making over the last 10 years. The EB was a very, very unique child of its own right. Other issues of this car at the time was back in 1994 when Michael Schumacher purchased a yellow EB110 and giving this company a great deal of publicity, but he actually crashed the car and gained further publicity when Schumacher announced that the brakes were inadequate after the crash. What's cool about this car is that it's not necessarily owned by rappers like you would expect today. It could be owned by people like Mr. Bean or people who are very influential in their cars' choices. The performance of the Bugatti at the time was a 3.5 litre Bugatti quad turbocharged V12, and it was a super powerful output of 412 kilowatts, which is roughly 553 horsepower. And back in the 90s, this was almost a race to get to that 200 spot. You've got to remember, those vehicles like the Ferrari F40, the Jaguar XJ, and the Lamborghini Diablo were kind of at this point where they were trying to be competitors against this car. The Super Sport even came with 603 horsepower. When it came to motorsport, this car had a varied history. The EB110 LM participated in 24-hour Le Mans, which is not bad considering not really any other Bugattis have since. The car qualified a very competitive 17th overall and 5th in the GT1 class, but did not finish the race. So it wasn't really the best, unlike the Ford GTs of the time. The car is now on display at the Automobile Museum in France, but the second car commissioned by a wealthy pharmaceutical then competed in a 1996 24 hours of Daytona, but suffered gearbox problems and again it did not finish. EB110 had innovative technologies that were scarcely used by the automotive industry at the time, so in its introduction, such as the carbon fibre monocoque chassis, active aerodynamics and quad turbocharging, these were all things that made the future Bugattis that we have today so special, and why I believe the EB110 is so important and very much an unsung hero in its history today. Due to 139 ever being produced, which is a very low number, even for the F40 standards, which had a lot more, and Jaguar XJ or Lamborghini Diablo, they also had a lot more in competitors-wise. It's just unlikely you'll ever see one. And as someone who goes to shows, I've still not seen one myself. Price-wise, they are literally anywhere from 1 to 2 million by the looks of it, potentially more overseas. These cars are incredibly rare, and to find a real one really is a special treat. So as a result, this car was really important to Bugatti because it produced the EB110 in the 90s and kind of put Bugatti back on the modern supercar scene. The company was then bought by Volkswagen, as we know, and the history writes itself. And of course, we then got the car, which we all know as the Veyron, and it became very famous and really leading to why Bugatti got bigger in its supercars. So the EB110 is a special car, and if you ever see one, remember its importance in today's world. Don't forget to subscribe if you like car content.